Hey, I'm Jordan. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for coming to chat with me today and ask me some questions. I'm one of the senior account managers here. I've been here for about 7 years, and I've done a whole slew of projects, mainly with clients, right? So I have some good relationship with clients and talent as well. I've worked with a ton of you. I'm sure I may recognize some of your names, but yeah, we got Ron and Jeff. Hey, Jeff. And Bill. Hey, Bill. Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, I was just saying what I was working on this morning. I was working, hey, Ron, was working on this massive 11 language project that they're having translated from English and localized to all these different locations around the world. Some of APAC, some in Europe, some here in North America. So it's a huge project. So that was my whole morning. This morning was trying to sort that out, negotiate pricing with talent and make sure we got all the right people. So if you guys have any questions for me specifically or just general questions, Randy's set me up with a few here that I can answer, but if you had anything specific, hey, Tara. Is there background music going, Randy, or is it
There's
just...
no background music. It's just you. I'm sorry.
It's just me. Well, that's all right. Maybe I can start with one of these questions to see if that kind of gets some things going, do you think? So I've got... Okay, so the question from Sam here is, hello. How can you tell a job opening is a scam on the website Upwork? I can't speak to Upwork, but as far as voices, the jobs that I've seen that look like spam have very little usage information, have very little information at all, or something doesn't add up in the budget to what you're being asked to do, or some other circumstance that doesn't really match up. If you've, seen enough of our jobs, you might have an idea of what that would look like. So that's the things I would say for that. Oh, we've got someone from Pakistan. That's great. Can you be okay, so we have another question here. Can you be a voiceover actor without a degree? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you need a specific degree in voiceover to start work. Actually, I've worked with a lot of people who have very little experience. But I do recommend some training at some point. Some of our top talent have hundreds of hours of training actually with either mentors or some sort of training school, academy, or something of that nature that kind of gives them just a bit of insight into how people speak and how to kind of perform in that sort of voiceover only realm. Are there file requirements for a job listed? Raven, I'm assuming, yeah, I'll wait for your full question. That's okay. I'm thinking it's more like specific requirements, like how they want the files delivered, things like that. What is the most beneficial vocal exercise or exercises? That's a good question. And I'm sorry, I'm not a talent professional. I work mainly with clients. I do a lot of work with talent. I do recommend, on, in my personal life, I do a lot of singing in a band. So often I'll do a lot of vocal warm-ups and singing, at range to kind of give my voice a bit of, it's kind of like I'm working it out. It's kind of like I'm giving it a little stretch before the actual event. So I would recommend any kind of that before you're doing, some sort of live session or even just auditions for the day. I'm sure there probably are some on YouTube you could look up that would be great vocal exercises, and I'm sure they sound hilarious. So back to Raven's question. Yeah, I think what she's asking here is are there file requirements listed on a job specifically? So sometimes yes, especially if it's for their phone system. Some phone systems are really specific to the files that they will accept. It's not WAV files. It's not MP3s. It's a specific codec. If they need something like that, I'm sure that the job would list that as part of the criteria, especially if it was something strange like that. Usually clients can always work with WAV files, AIFF, MP3 files, especially for voice, because the range, the actual dynamic range isn't as much as music. So MP3 actually works okay for that for most things. Annabelle. Okay. So Annabelle's asking about, it sounds like she's been coached and has done a lot of studying, is working hard on the site. That is a good question. I do get that a lot from talent when they're not getting success. It is a numbers game, I'll say that. I always say that to talents, like the more that you can audition in a day, the better. It's the same as sales, right? The more phone calls you can make in a day, the more sales you might make, the more doors that you knock in a day, the more sales you make. So I would say that, doing as many auditions as possible will, obviously give you more opportunity to win those jobs. Maybe being more specific to your voice. You might be auditioning for things that don't necessarily match your voice style or what the client is looking for. So there might be some discrepancies there. And so if there is a style or something that you specialize in, that maybe that would be more where you direct your efforts on the site. Yeah, those are usually the main two things that I say, although there's probably some others. Oh. Yeah. I can't speak for specific voice, like American voice coaches, but the person you're referring to, yeah, like I have heard that person is great and would probably be a good start. There's a ton of ways to go that way for sure. So Sam, what rate should I request for my very first voiceover job? I want to be compensated with dignity, and I know the clients are taking a chance on someone without experience. Right. Always a good question. What does the client want to pay? Hard to know. If they've put a specific budget in there, like that's likely what they have to spend. Like, if you want to go a bit above that, fine. But in all likelihood, the budget that they've presented on the job posting is the one that they have to work with. Oftentimes, clients are just kind of handed a project and the budget isn't large, and they come to Voices to try and find competitive talent who are willing to work for that. So and again, it might turn into something where they want to hire you for multiple jobs. So I always kind of keep that in my back pocket whenever I'm doing low budget jobs. But yeah, I mean, I would stay within their budget. If they're having a specific budget, do that. If they're within a range, then do whatever's comfortable for you. So Ron is asking, will not having samples loaded hurt you in getting a job that is doing an audition? So I think I understand this as maybe not uploading a custom audition to the job, where that's a huge hurdle for clients. They want to hear you read a custom audition. That's why they've put that as a sample script. So I know sometimes it's hard to, audition for that many jobs, and some people will post a demo just because that's the time they have. But if you can find the time to do a custom audition for the clients, you'll be looked at on probably a greater lens that way. If you're talking about your profile not having samples loaded, Yeah, a lot of clients working on the platform will see your audition, listen to it, and then also want to go to your profile page and see what other work you've done. So not having samples loaded into your profile page can be a detriment. I mean, you would only need like one or two, to have maybe just like your whole demo that has, the commercials that you've done, maybe a few business explainers, maybe some e-learning work you've done, anything that you've done, but make that like a 2-minute file all kind of smashed together. And then if you want, you can have some individual ones that you break out after that. That just helps you to work with the algorithm that we have as well. Great. Yeah, no problem, Annabelle. And Ron on the profile, yeah. Yeah, definitely try to put something. I've seen a lot of things on profiles. People that have been here for a short amount of time, like I was saying, they might have a large demo, like 2023 commercial demos. And it's all of the things they've done that year smashed into a 2-minute file. And then each one of those commercials is actually broken out into a separate sample demo as well, just so that if the client wants to hear those, they can. But yeah, trying to have a pretty full featured or put as much information into your profile page as you can. I think it helps you to win jobs because clients definitely look at it. Okay, yeah, that's a good, okay, so Khan's asking about being an Indian English speaker and you'll get 100% voice match on the North American accent jobs. So that could be something in your profile. I believe that there's still a section in the profile where they can pick what languages they speak and the accents they have, right? So it's possible you have English North American as part of your accents tags that you would do, but I maybe would remove that if it's very specific jobs that you're seeing for English North American, because if they're looking for an accented job, typically they'll they'll choose English as their main language, and then as the accent they'll choose the sub language that they want the accent for. So English, like Spanish English, or we've done some Indonesian, some Singapore things where we need that kind of accent. So I think changing that might not give you 100% voice match and give you a better idea of the ones that you should be shooting for. But yeah, if you're only getting shortlisted for 6 out of 10, some of them are probably not looking for an accent. I do find that sometimes with English jobs, some talent will have an accent and the client's just not looking for that, so we can't send them forward. So Raven's asking, what's a suggestion for use of music in my demo? The music should be lower than my spoken volume, right? Yes. How much lower? Yes. So, to be honest with you, I avoid, I tell talent to not do this, to not put music underneath their VO, because what the clients are doing on the other side of things, if they have certain subscriptions and memberships with Voices, they can download these auditions, put them into a video and then pitch that to their client, right? So they're going to want to have a pretty clean voiceover track that they can use to pitch this to their client, because it gives them a real feel of what it's going to be when they're completed the actual production. So I think I try to avoid music, but if you are going to add it, yes, add it low. I know that some talent use it as a form of protection or security so that people aren't, kind of scooping their voiceover and using it elsewhere, which we don't find a lot of given the current AI environment. So, but if you got to do music, yeah, keep it low. Make sure your voiceover is front and center. Try to just keep everything mono. Don't do a stereo mix or anything. Yeah. These are really good questions.
Yeah, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Make you think.
No, actually, yeah, because I'm having to think about how a talent's profile is set up too, and how that triggers them to get notifications for their jobs. That's a big one for sure. No problem, Raven. So this kind of goes along with, there's one of the, generic questions that I've had here from Randy, and it says, if a client is looking for someone with a different accent than I have, should I avoid auditioning? And my answer is yes. Just save unless you've got a lot of extra time in the day where you've gone through all of the voiceover jobs that you would be good for or have matched high on, and you're just doing some things at the end of the day to sort of see if you can catch a fish, if you will. But generally, if the client has specified an accent of sorts, that's what they're looking for, and they're not really going to, sway from that. What they might do is actually post 2 jobs, so one job with an accent and then one with an English or whatever language they're looking for. Jeff, if you have commercially loud music and your voice is also commercially loud on the music, yes, I also agree with that. Voiceover, does tend to be front and center, and the music, I would agree with you there, as long as it's sort of not louder than that. GarageBand, so Marlon is asking about GarageBand, if it's an acceptable medium for submitting auditions. As long as it can spit out a WAV or an AIFF or an MP3 file. I'm not sure what I think it's AIFF. But as long as it can be edited to, a specific length, that's always a good plus, when you're submitting auditions, so there's not a big blank space at the beginning or the end. But any sort of program out there that can record and deliver WAV files or any kind of digital audio, I think is good. We use Audacity, GarageBand. There's a whole slew of them out there. I think they're all fine for auditioning purposes. So Sam's asking if a phone's microphone is sufficient quality for recording if the model is recent, like a Galaxy G5. So I come from like a traditional recording background. I went to OAR here in London, Ontario. So I always shy away from things that aren't purpose-built for the idea that you're going for. So if the phone, has a great microphone, it has a good piece of recording software, it's probably not going to be as good as if you went out and bought, say, like a $200 microphone and a preamp and put that into your computer and just recorded it. However, with the advent of all this new technology that comes out, there is a chance that combination with phones would work. But any of the auditions that I've heard where they're saying it's on a phone or of that nature, there is a definite quality difference that I'm noticing. And I would never use a phone for any kind of live session or delivering final files or anything like that, for sure. Yeah, good comment there, Jeff, on that too. Yeah, this job is wonderful for me because I come from like live sound, recorded audio, studios, like that kind of background up until I was in my, late 30s. I'm 45 now, so I've been, really fortunate to still use those skills here and sort of, talk with, the studios and the producers and the talent who all know this stuff as well, and sort of, still have that kind of communication with them. And it's good shop talk if you want. I like doing that too. Right. So what is the best way to learn EQ compression and all those gimmicks that other voice artists sound more colorful? That is, yes, definitely watch some of our YouTube videos. Wealth of knowledge on best EQ practices, a little bit of compression. I will say this, whenever effects are used, just try to be slight with it with your auditions. And then I also do that for your final recordings. A lot of times these are going to an editor who already knows a lot about that. So if you give him a pretty raw file or something that's not very colored, then he's able to work his magic and he won't come back, for a raw file. But I've found sometimes talent get a little bit too much compression, a little bit too much EQ in some places, and then the clients are asking, for a clean file because of all that. So I do recommend watching the videos to get an idea of how to do that. And then when you're doing it, do it lightly. Don't go nuts. The only thing I might do is like if you're using a de-esser to stop your S's from screeching into the microphone, that might be the only thing that I would be heavy on, because it really does, it's like an immediate kind of action that happens when it triggers. And I would also say the same for like any kind of plosives or kind of limiter that you have in there that's just like a very slight thing to catch any plosives if you don't have a good pop screen. And it does take some time learning what to listen for in your own voice when you're EQing, and then learning what the microphone is doing to your voice when it's being recorded and listening to it being played back over your speakers. So yeah, there's a lot of variables there. It does take some time. It is an art. But again, yeah, go easy on that stuff when you're doing it. The clients like it. So, while we're on this idea of recording, there's a question here about what happens on a generic session. Oh, hold on, we got more questions coming in. What are my favorite plugins for fixing audio? Randy, I don't actually fix audio anymore. I used to do it very manually, right? And when I do any kind of audio stuff now, it's very manual. So if I'm looking at like a waveform, and it's a voiceover, you're looking for, things that make it stick out and send it over 0 and pushing you into the red. So a lot of times those are just like little plosives, and a lot of times you can get in there with an editing tool and just kind of zero those out. But Randy, and yeah, Isotope is a great one. That is a Swiss Army knife for everything. I'm trying to think of some other ones right now. But I would stick with those ones, yeah.
For fixing, that's kind of the go-to, the industry standard. There's some like one-button plugins from Waves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some good ones, but...
Well, I'm sure any of those plugin companies that are worth their salt have something like that. It's just whether or not they're good. And I mean, I've heard so much about Isotope and all kinds of audio, just any kind of audio problems, right? From archival to what we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. In speaking with my clients, do you feel they steer away from booking newer talent, or do you feel the main factor is audition quality? I'll preface my answer with, it really depends on the scope of the job. So if it's like a high profile broadcast job for Google, they're probably not going to want to have a brand new talent come in there and maybe like just sort of, they don't want the risk, because they obviously have their client, on the line with them during the live session. So that's sort of their red flag for, some broadcast jobs. But no, generally, the clients that I work with actually who are doing, mainly non-broadcast business explainers or e-learning or any kind of internal training, they're always looking for new voices. They're looking for people that aren't, who they haven't heard from a million times, because they've worked with us for so long that over time you might start to recognize so many voices. But so it's nice to have fresh voices in there. As an account manager, whenever I'm doing shortlists, I'm always putting new people forward, people that don't have any stars, just to, because I can hear that they're going to be a good match for the client's artistic direction, and it doesn't require a heavy live session or anything like that. It would just be file delivery, and then it helps get the talent's feet wet using voices and kind of producing product for the clients. And I think that's good for everybody. So Bill's got a question. Can you tell us about what things look like on the client side when a job comes in and what a senior account manager does? Right. So I have a lot. Okay. I'll talk about one client I have on the West Coast. They are what I call a dual client. So they use the platform, right? So they use the platform. They know how to use it really well. They love the talent they're working with. They use it whenever they have low touch projects, right? So something that they don't need an account manager. There's not a lot of documentation. The platform does it all very well. They're happy to do it there. They've got the time. When a client comes down with a job and they want to do, managed services where I'm sort of working with them, doing all of the, casting, managing, non-disclosure agreements, any kind of documentation, booking the sessions, renegotiating things if we need to. It's what they're looking for is basically guidance from their account manager. And then, so what we're looking for is when we post the job, we really are looking for talent that not only meet the artistic direction, but seem to have like a greater thought of like how this project is going to move forward. That's not to say that's who we only choose, but I think when clients come down, most of the time we're talking about things like budgets. We're talking about artistic direction. I'm trying to think about other things that it looks like, that wouldn't be quite apparent to a talent. Basically what I do is I'm a relationship maker, right? So I try to keep clients real happy, regardless of what their project is. If they need my help, then I facilitate everything for them. And then if they don't need my help, then I'm pushing them sort of to what they need to do on the platform to make their job successful. I mean, my sole role is to make sure every job is successful. So oftentimes it's client-led. So they tell me what they want, and then I sort of go forward with best practices and find out what they need. I'm not sure if that actually answers your question, Bill. But if you have any follow-up there, just let me know. You said usage. So usage does come into play. And oftentimes, you got to think of it from like the end client's perspective, that doing renewals and dealing with usage can sometimes be a detriment to them and add more cost down the road for them to have to, negotiate this and or manage it themselves, even though if they are with voices, we tend to manage that with them. So that's why usage sometimes comes in as these weird things like broadcast, perpetuity, everywhere, all time. Like just because they don't understand, number one. Number two, they just don't want to deal with it. So usage does come into play. We always try to get them to agree to some sort of usage period because we understand that perpetuity for talent would preclude them from future work in that market. So say if it was for IBM, then they wouldn't be able to do things in technology at all because it's the same market. So usage comes into play. And again, we, it's client-led. Sometimes they want 3 to 5, 10 years, whatever it is. We just try to negotiate the best deal that we know that the talent would be okay with. Okay, so Sam, does a voice actor have to update to a premium membership before applying for an audition or a job? I'm gonna leave this for voices. I don't think so. I think that it's
to audition to public jobs, they have to be upgraded.
I'm not sure.
They do, yeah.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But they can be invited as a guest by a client still.
Right, that is still the thing. Okay, yes. So it is still, yes. Paid subscription to Audition for talent. However, if the client so this has happened before where a talent didn't renew their membership and they are now like a guest on the site. So they can't audition for jobs, but they can be searched for and found by the client. So they can reach out to you privately if you have a guest account, and they can have you audition for a job, and they can, do all the payment. You can submit files, all those things without a membership. Oddly enough, sometimes we do that for very, very strange languages or people who would never be a voiceover actor ever again. Sometimes we just ask them for a guest membership because the client has asked for this person specifically, and then we kind of facilitate it so that they're not on the hook for a membership for an entire year. Because honestly, some of the people that we've hired would never do voiceover again, and it's sometimes funny the whole way the scenario comes down. But anyways, I won't go deeper into that. I don't think we're accepting AI auditions. I wouldn't recommend it either. There's a lot of buzz about this right now, and I don't think that going that direction in the current time I think it's disingenuous is what it is. I think people, when they're coming to voices.com, are looking for real voiceover actors. And so submitting an AI voice in that sort of audition slate, it might fool the client and therefore lead to maybe some problems, further down the line. These are great questions. This is, what do clients look for when they come? What else can I say there? Sometimes clients come with really specific things, right? And other times clients come with nothing and they have no idea what they're looking for. And you just sometimes will throw a net out there and you might have to cast 2 times for those clients. But that is some of the stuff we deal with as an account manager, is trying to, using my experience working here for so long, and then, maybe reading the script a little bit. I might add my own artistic direction sometimes to jobs just because I think I know what they might look for. I might be wrong and I might have to recast, but it's interesting. Yeah, sometimes what clients come to us with, because they've never done it before, they don't know how to do this whole process. And those are always fun because it gives us a chance to really shine and present great talent and kind of knock it out the park. Does auditioning early to a job affect the likelihood for getting the job? Often when I see the job, there's already 25 or more responses. Really good question, Greg. Some of my jobs are hyper fast, right? So they need to be auditioned and sent out same day. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days. If the job has a deadline, oftentimes for us as account managers and project managers here, we're waiting until that deadline until we're actually looking at all the auditions. So auditioning early in that sense doesn't really make a difference because you'll be still lumped in with the, however many number of people are on that auditioning page. If it's a rush job, yes, absolutely. It matters 100%. But for most jobs, like, you're not scored better because you auditioned earlier. Perhaps the client might be really anxious or eager about this job, so they might be checking back, within the first couple hours to see if there's auditions and listening to some. I don't find that that's the norm because most clients just post a job and come back the next day. But in that sense, sometimes people might flag you as, an early front runner if you do audition early. But only in those rush jobs do I think it really makes a big difference. So about the AI thing, don't do, yes. Do I provide feedback in regard to what the quality of auditions are? Yeah, Greg, that's a good point. It's a good idea. Yes. Like, once you get so far down any road, it's a good idea to, especially if you're not getting traction, is to sort of understand what you don't see. In regards to voiceover, that could be things like the microphone setup, the preamp, but it could just be artistic direction. You know what I mean? It could just be how you're following the script. It can be so many different variables. If you have anybody in your community of fellow voiceover actors, or even a mentor that you have, or even if you wanted to, hire someone to sort of coach you, a lot of times that can illuminate so much, even in your own personal life, right? If you have a life coach, sometimes it can really illuminate a lot in your own life about what you haven't really been seeing. So I think that, That would be good advice for any VO artist that maybe isn't getting the traction that they think that they should be getting at this point. Although sometimes it just does take that long to get in the groove to audition for the right job, and then once you've got one, it's like they just come in like rain after that. It's funny. I don't understand it either. Sometimes the stories that the talent have told me have been amazing where that happens, and then I hear some often where it took them 2 years to get there, and then all of a sudden it happened. So I'm wishing you success for sure, Greg, on this. But if you can find somebody to bounce some ideas off, or at least just give a listen to your auditions and give some feedback that way, that's a good start for sure. Yes, Hannibal. Good. Yeah, totally. It's coming. Just keep going, Greg. It'll come. Um, I can't tell you the number of times I've heard that exact same sentiment from talent, regardless of if it's 1,100 jobs or 500 jobs or 200 jobs. Um, it can appear like it's an easy gig, and when in fact I don't really necessarily think that that's the way that it is for everybody. However, there are those stories where people are successful right away, right off the bat. But it is an acquired skill like anything else. I think some of the best professionals we have on the site have been doing this and have really honed their craft over years of work and coaching and mentorship and hundreds of thousands of auditions, if not more. Yes, and Mission Audition is a great resource for that stuff as well. That podcast is great. Some really good resources in there for anybody who's looking for extra ideas and tips.
Jordan, can you talk a little bit about going off how much liberties you should take in an audition? What do you find an acceptable amount? Yeah.
Do you know that's a good question, Randy? And I remember seeing on this list here. So it really depends what they're asking for. If it's a straight read, right? Like if it's I won't even go business explainers, but if it's definitely like an e-learning, a training, something like that, where it's kind of straight ahead, don't add any kind of flair into that or any kind of anything that's external to the script. Stay on script. But I've had a lot of people win jobs because they started their audition with, okay, listen, and then they started the script, or like, okay, check this out, and then started the script. It's amazing what that does when you're looking for that guy next door or that girl next door or like somebody who is your coworker, which is actually what a lot of people want now. They don't want your salesman. They want, just me and you talking back and forth and telling me about something that you were excited about. Like that gets people going. So yes, tastefully adding those things in at points can maybe win you the job. And it's amazing. I can't remember who it was now, but for a while there, he was coming in with, okay, check this out. And then like had a great dialogue with the voiceover, and it was perfect. And the client loved it every time. So take that for whatever it is. Okay, so should I wait to record demo samples until after I have a professional microphone? Sam, if you've got a membership and you're ready to rock, don't let me stop you, right? Like go and do it. Like you can always have better equipment. And even when you get your new microphone, you're going to want a better microphone and like a better Neumann and a better, there's always a better thing. So, start with what you got, work with the things that you can as best you can, and then you can work yourself up at whatever pace you've got. But don't stop doing the thing that you are trying to do just because maybe, you don't have the fastest car or you don't have, the nicest pants or whatever it is. The microphone is definitely very important, but not the be-all, end-all. So how many different takes should I put in for an audition? 2 is good. 3's sometimes too much. Always maybe let the client know at the very beginning, 2 takes. right? So that they know that there's 2 takes, because sometimes they might be skipping through your audition because they've listened to 20 others before yours and just want to get to the meat and potatoes. So they'll always listen to the beginning. Make sure you put 2 takes or 3 takes if you're doing it. But really, 2 takes is usually plenty for them to get an idea of what it is. And in all honesty, 1 is often enough. Like, just try to nail it the first time, if it's going to save you some time, unless it's something where it's really specific with the artistic direction and they're looking for something with humor, something, there's a number of different things. But yeah. Thanks, Bill. No problem, Tom. Yeah, Norm, okay. So you're wondering how to make sure the volume is right. So usually the indicators on digital audio devices will be green as it approaches, getting to the top, and then yellow as it approaches, getting to limit, and then red when you're at limit and it's not, it's being into distortion or digital distortion. So if you can, try to stay at, like, I think it's -6 that most people try to stay at, -6 to -3, I think. But oftentimes as loud as you can get it before hitting red is kind of just the way that I ask people to do things. If they're not really savvy with digital audio programs or workstations of that matter, just try to get it as loud as possible into the yellow, but not into the red. Good comments. Yeah. This is great stuff. Thanks for coming, guys. Where is everybody? Can you tell me where you are? Because I don't see locations. If you want to, you don't have to. I'm in London, Ontario. Hey. Well, yes. Hey. Winnipeg. Hey. I've been to the airport twice. I wish I could stay longer. South Florida, nice. So a question from John: has the platform as a whole seen a reduction in jobs in the past few months? I have seen significantly less jobs coming through. This is, yeah, I mean, I guess what I say here, and when we talk about the ebb and flow of the voiceover business, I think that voiceover on the whole had an unprecedented couple of years over COVID, just simply because of the way people had to work. Companies still needed people to do voiceover, and now we were all remote. So I think by and large there was what I would call like a kind of a bump in the industry over that time, especially at Voices, with the amount of jobs that were being posted, just because people didn't have any other options. They were posting. They came out of the woodwork. We'd never worked with them before, and they started posting jobs. So I think that that might be what part of what you're seeing is, like, we're not in that frame anymore. People have gone back to their old ways where they would prefer to work in a studio and work with their local voiceover actors and not work with a remote vendor studio scenario. I think that is more to the point. Like, I think overall there might be less jobs, but I don't think it's because the industry has done a downward turn. I just think we had a massive up, over the past 2-3 years before that. That's my opinion, by the way. I don't know. Is it okay to use plugins during a live session, not letting the engineer know that you were filtering? So I just try to be as honest during sessions as possible. If you're worried about quality, definitely make it as quality as you can. And if you find that using this plugin works better for you, then do that. But I would definitely maybe let the engineer know that that's what's happening, because he'll, like, if he's worth his salt, he'll probably ask you, because he's probably going to hear it. He might even ask you what kind of microphone you're using. A lot of these guys, they know that stuff off the top of their head, and they've done enough voiceover jobs to know kind of, what a raw sounding audio sounds like off of a microphone versus something that's got compression and maybe a bit of effects on it. So just be honest during those things, and if they don't want it, then don't put it on there. If they don't care, then it's absolutely fine to use it. Sometimes people don't notice, but I would always try to be honest with them for sure. South Florida, things are hot down there. Oh my gosh. Carolina, Los Angeles. Thanks, guys. This is at United Kingdom. Wow. I feel blessed. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to me gab about this stuff. This is amazing. How do I get into voiceover acting? I'm very new to this stuff and would like to do this mainly for fun. Yeah. Fantastic Cube. So voiceover acting, you can dabble in voiceover acting. So I guess I'm going to preface this. Usually to get into voiceover acting, you have to be, you're going to need somebody to get you work. So it's very hard to advocate for yourself unless you're part of an online platform or an agency or some kind of agent or somebody that's going to be out there, doing that for you. You can kind of self-promote, but oftentimes using a platform or a service like Voices to get you started really helps. It's a very low barrier to entry, right? You're talking a microphone, a computer, a piece of software to record yourself, and then a membership to, the platforms that you can audition on, and then you can just start going. I do recommend training. I do recommend some reading. I do recommend listening to a lot of podcasts on this. Our podcast is great for that, just to kind of get your feet wet on terminology, best practices, what clients are looking for, listening to a few voiceovers, like critically, to like actually hear what the talent and how they're speaking, because if you do that, you notice that they're not speaking like I am. There's a performance that's happening. So those are all good things to start with. And yeah, do it for fun. It's a super fun thing, and I work on a lot of fun projects. Okay. Yeah, so the sibilance is can be hard with depending on who you are. This affects a lot of singers as well when they're out touring live, where their S's will just rip speakers apart because they're just so sibilant. There are plugins for this. They're called de-essers. So de-essers. I don't know. Can you call it? Okay, de-essers are good. With Audacity, I think it's a destructive editing, so it's gonna like you can't really I guess you can preview it beforehand, but it is destructive editing, so you just kind of set the parameters and then say go, and it adjusts the file. If you can get out of Audacity and get into something with real-time editing, then it kind of helps you to adjust that a little better, because the S's are slight on some things and then really present on others. But that being said, with Audacity, getting a de-esser plugin, setting it at a slight de-ess will help, and then you'll get a feel for it, how many decibels of reduction and what frequency your S's are at. Typically, they're at about like 4 to 6K, but it just depends on the person. But yeah, we used to have to use one at a live performance. I can't remember the lady's name now, but we used it all the time because she played for us, Victoria, and she would rip our speakers apart, and we had to use it. And she was right at 6K. So. Is AI taking a big bite from our share? Is the future more competitive in VO? The future is always going to be more competitive in VO. AI is going to change the way we all do work in general all over the place. So voiceover is no different. if you have listened to or been part of any kind of, if you're listening to media at all these days, you're hearing it. It's in a lot of YouTube videos that are just informational. It's in a lot of things that maybe typically would have gone to, a $100 voiceover or something like that. I still think that there will always be a place for real voices in the world. I don't think that AI will get to a point where it can evoke the emotion that a person can, or read into a script the way that a person can who's skilled at their craft. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that probably could be AI, and could have been that in the past. We just didn't have the technology. So this is coming for sure. It's coming for all of us, even music industry folks, business professionals, publishers, like everybody. So yeah, it'll change, and so we'll just move, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, Chelsea, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but again, there will never not be a need for the human voice. I don't know when it'll get there. Maybe it will at some point where AI can have emotions, but some of the ways that I've heard people read scripts that are so impactful when it's put with music is beyond anything I've ever heard with the best AI that I've I've listened to. So yeah, I just don't think that that's ever going to be replaceable. So that's going to be maybe the niche market for voiceovers in the future. I don't know. There's always going to be people that want a real voice. They don't want an AI voice. I think that's going to be a stigma against it maybe in the near future. The same as it is with any kind of information that you're trying to read. You don't want AI writing it. You want to have it from a doctor, right? I want to have this from a real clinician or somebody who knows something about something. So I think that there'll be some stigma there, and I think maybe over time that'll wane. Who knows? It's not that far out, but it is still in the future. So we don't know yet. How to be confident during a voiceover. Well, yeah. But this is a bigger question though. It's not just about it's how do you be confident in something that you're not really skilled at or not really feeling confident about yet. And that's always, that is a skill that we all acquire. I think that especially in voiceover, just going for it, right? Just go for it, right? Whatever you've got in your head, whatever you think this is the right way to say it, the right way to present it, it's probably right. You may as well go with that. And if it's not, the person, if you're on a live session, is going to tell you, or if you didn't do it the right way during the audition, they might not choose you. But at the same time, I think if the client has listened to your audition and they think you can do it, then that's your confidence there, because they think you can do it, and so you can.
Take a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Call it.
So how do the big dogs in the industry scout out their voiceover actors? I guess that depends. I think that is subjective to that big dog. So we work with a lot of big dogs that love having new voices, voices that maybe haven't done major brands yet, voices that are very skilled at their craft, but they've only been doing film work or something. So how do they find them? I think that they look for avenues like voices that may have been available for, like I'm saying, agencies, maybe specific agents, maybe they've worked with somebody, maybe they have a studio relationship. A lot of the big dogs, they've been in this industry for 50 plus years. They already have their established relationships. So, they're going to have their own avenues, but that doesn't mean that, brands like Google, brands like Disney, Apple, all these big brands, they still are with voices. They look for voices.com talent, and they like the platform, how it works, the amount of talent they can get, the amount of languages they can get through one provider, and how flexible we are with pricing based off of the marketplace idea, right? So how do they scout for voiceover actors? I think they do it a multitude of different ways, including voices. What are the big things to avoid when submitting a job? Right. Well, slating your auditions is something from the past where they'd be like, "Hi, this is so and so. This is Jordan Blake, giving you 6 takes. Here we go." They don't want to. They're listening to 20 auditions in a row. You are taking up 5 seconds of precious time. Don't slate your audition. Just start. That would be my biggest one. And trying to stay on with their artistic direction. Don't try to stray too much from that unless it's, like I said earlier in this, unless it's some sort of idea where they need a real person speaking, then add some flair. USB mic, headphones on a sound card not working. Have to get a condenser mic. Yeah, definitely. Condenser mics are more sensitive. Some can be better for voiceover. A lot of them are best for voiceover. Not all of them. There are some dynamic mics that are great for voiceover with large diaphragms, and they do wonderful in radio and live sound and all kinds of things like that. But a lot of USB mics are meant for podcasting. They're maybe not meant for recording specifically. So, but I mean, some of them do work. Like, what's that one? The Blue Yeti, I think I've seen 1,000,000 times on auditions, and it sounds fine. I think there's one from Rode that has USB mic, sounds great. You know, like, it's a way to do things for sure. Last question. Okay. In a year, 300 auditions, scored 10, 50 shortlists, made over 5K. Is that a good ratio, or do I need to do more work? How many auditions do you generally do a day? Like a day? And how many hours do you work a day on a voiceover?
Just about 10-second delay on the stream, so.
That's okay. I'll wait for the question. So 310, so like 2 hours a day. That's great. That's really good. I mean, that's a fair 5. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, that's great. So you're winning jobs. You've made 5K. You did 300 auditions. So some of the talent that I've spoken to who do some of the top work on the site are doing over 100 auditions a day. Or more, depending on the day that they are, but 50 to 100 on their general days. So, and sometimes that might be hard for people, but they've just got a workflow that's like, okay, we're going to read this audition. Here we go. Submit the thing. Okay, on to the next one. And they've just got a queue. But if you have a day job, like you're saying, I see how that can preclude you from doing that amount of work. But I think that what you've said here with, 300 auditions, you got 10 jobs. So what's that? What's that percentage? I'm not doing very good. My brain is sliced right now. Yeah, so that's not bad. And 50 shortlists too, which means you were on there ready to go and you made 5K. So I don't think that that's bad, especially for doing 2 hours of work a day. And you can only go higher than that, right? If you add an extra hour a day or an extra 2 or 3 hours a day, it might help you out to get more and more jobs. I want to thank you all. I think that was the last question. This was really enjoyable for me, and I hope that I was able to give you a bit of insight into what we do. I really like working with you all. When I get to meet new people, I love it. When we have a great, working relationship, it's perfect. I mean, it's just it's the kind of job I always kind of wanted, and I'm glad to work with you all. So thanks for coming, and thanks for supporting Voices.